Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's your old buddy, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, and I tell it like it is. I'll say that to say this. Coming to you right now, live to tape, 25 feet below the surface of the earth. Here on a Monday, here to talk to you about a complete idiot's guide to pro wrestling and all the research that we have put together. Of course, you know the book was written in 1999 and released, and here we are in 2021 by Burt Randolph Sugar and Captain Lou Albano. A match made in heaven. Now, if you go back on the channel here, follow me on all social media platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. You're not going to want to miss it. And of course, here on the YouTube channel, we are covering Rowdy Rivalries of Revenge. We're on chapter 11, an unbelievable read that's pertinent. The Founding Fathers, wrestling's colorful history, and that's what I'm here to bring to you. Again, on Facebook, follow my personas at jbrony and Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian, and you know what that means. Of course, on Instagram at the Guardian of Chaos, and on Big Daddy GOC, the GOC for the Guardian of Chaos on Twitter. Hit that profile link. That'll bounce you over here where I have almost 80 coming up on 100 episodes of Chaos Corner. And all, of course, the wrestling personas and images and the history of the GOC in this business. So we're covering here, this is part 4. Listen to the first 3 parts. We covered Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair. We covered Bruno Sammartino and superstar Billy Graham. We covered Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan. And now here we are with Andre the Giant and Blackjack Mulligan. You're not going to want to miss this, fans. Don't go anywhere. Kick back and relax. It's in segments. We go for 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Again, like, subscribe, hit the bell, have a cup of coffee. That's what I'm doing. But don't go anywhere. I lowered the music, right? There's nobody here. It's me and you. Let's get on to the task at hand. Chaos Corner, because I tell it like it is. Andre the Giant versus Blackjack Mulligan. It's no wonder Andre the Giant was called the 8th wonder of the world. He was so big at 495 pounds, he ended up being a 575, I believe, at one point, that you could print a Goodyear on his back and float him over arenas. And so big that few would dare to challenge him. One who did was Blackjack Mulligan. And therein lies the tale of one of wrestling's biggest grudge matches of all time. Blackjack Mulligan was a man among men himself, standing 6'9" and weighing more than 300 pounds, with cowboy boots and his infamous claw to use when the going got tough. In addition to being huge, Blackjack was also a skilled practitioner, able to use his strength and speed to bedazzle his opponents and impose his psychological and physical will on them. Here on Rowdy Rivalries of Revenge, on Chaos Corner with yours truly. Mulligan had only recently joined the WWF with the stated purpose of wresting the belt from its then champion, Bob Backlund. Frustrated in his attempts, he announced to all that he would become a giant killer instead and take on the man who looked like the Jack met at the top of the beanstalk. Andre the Giant. Like the cat that ate the cheese and sat in front of the mouse hole with bated breath, Mulligan tried to bait the trap for Andre, calling him the Freak. And even once jumping into the ring to lend his aid to 2 men battling Andre, battering the Giant into submission. But the sleeping Giant stirred. He wanted revenge in the worst way and was determined to get it. A match between the 2 behemoths was quickly arranged. It was a big match in more ways than one. The second the bell sounded for the classic confrontation, again, fans, on YouTube, you can find it. Andre and Blackjack attacked one another, trying to mightily to vent their anger on each other. It was less a wrestling bout than a dog fight. It was attack, attack, attack. At first one, then the other took a turn. Soon even the ring proved too small to contain the fury of the combatants, and the action spilled over onto the floor outside the ropes. Mulligan somehow managed to maneuver the Giant into his deadly claw hold. He held it until he thought blood and brought the blood from Andre's face. But once he released it, feet gave fear to his feet. Mulligan soon like an Olympic 100-meter gold medalist as he fled the premises for the dressing room, leaving the furious Andre far behind. You get the picture. The official decision read double disqualification, were both counted out. And while the title, the true giant of the wrestling world, had gone undecided, and we know what's happened since then, one thing was certain and had been bigger grudge match in wrestling history. At this point, this had been none bigger. Remember when this was dated. Remember what you're listening to here. This is 1999, before the turn of the century in 2000. This was over 20 years ago. A Pro Wrestling Idiot's Guide. Complete Idiot's Guide. Unbelievable read. Again, we know the history here. Let's move on to Ric Flair versus Harley Race, and we'll get it into this same part here on part 4. Go back and check out the first 3 on the rowdy rivalries of revenge. You can't forget Ric Flair versus Harley Race. While the rest of America was sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner, hey, how ironic. We just left Thanksgiving this past weekend. Look how pertinent it is here in Chaos Corner. We go back and look at history. That's what you get here. Entertainment personified. No matter what the content is, you'll get no other listen or hear than this. Oh, let's not forget the video impact of the GOC. While the rest of America was sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner on the last Thursday of November, 1983, the eyes of the wrestling world were focused on a bigger feast, the star-studded wrestling extravaganza in Greensboro, North Carolina, called Starrcade 83. The battle at the Greensboro Coliseum pitted the two and only Ric Flair and Harley Race, met in a battle that would go down as one of the greatest grudge matches in the history of professional wrestling. To set the stage, Flair had lost the prestigious NWA belt to Race during the summer of 1983, and in the months that followed, his sole goal had been to regain the title, his title. But despite the fact that he had enticed Race into the ring on several occasions, Flair had come up empty. On the other hand, Race had tried Race had tired of hearing Flair's constant challenges and now resorted to a race-saving tactic, one worthy of Machiavelli. He offered $25,000 to anyone who could sidetrack his persistent foe. Again, some unbelievable photos here in the book. No sooner had the bounty been placed on Flair's golden-tressed head that Cowboy Bob Orton and Dirty Dick Slater appeared at a match between Flair and Race and set upon Flair. They left him with an injured neck and injured pride, and the two of them split the check for $25,000. Flair dropped out of sight for a while after that, long enough to heal his wounds and his pride. Then he resurfaced with a new determination to get back into the race and to get Race. Picking up some markers along the way, he repaid both Orton and Slater in kind for their earlier courtesies, then set his sights on the one and only thing that mattered, the only thing between him and his belt, Harley Race. In a battle to end all battles, and one that will be remembered by anyone who saw it, the two now met once again, but this wasn't just some local event. It was telecast wherever a signal would carry it. Waged in a 15-foot steel cage without benefit of rules, no time limit, no stoppages, even for injury, and with a definite winner guaranteed to emerge from the cage, the battle was epic. Both men used everything at their disposal and then some. The bout combined brutal force and scientific wrestling, cheap shots and extravagant moves, old-time know-how and modern crowd-pleasing performance. Here, Race used the steel cage to cave in Flair's brow. There, Flair used his forearm to drive Race back. And everywhere there was the headlock, the body shot, and the backflip. Finally, Rick had his face etched in blood, his hopes slowly draining away, brought up a forearm from somewhere deep down in the inner recesses of his championship, found the strength to drive Race to the canvas. It was all over. Flair had done all but the impossible and yanked victory from the brow of defeat. Now the fans in the stands trumpeted his name, and the wrestlers who had been on the undercard all rushed in the ring, hail his triumph. Ric Flair had regained his belt and once again stood as the NWA king of the Wrestling Hill. The lineup for a wrestling event is often referred to as the card. Fighting words. Referring to the listing of matches, top of the card refers to the main event or headliner. The undercard refers to all the other matches that are fought before and after the main event. Fans, an unbelievable two-parter there here in part 4. We had Andre the Giant and Blackjack Mulligan, and now Ric Flair and Harley race in the rowdy rivalries of revenge, the founding fathers of wrestling's colorful history, here on the Complete Idiot's Guide to Pro Wrestling. Captain Lou Albano and Burt Randolph Sugar, a match made in heaven, circa 1999. Stay tuned for part 5. We'll be right back here on Chaos Corner. So we leave what was the unbelievable matchup between Harley Race and Ric Flair a la Thanksgiving 1983, and we head into Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik before we start to wrap things up here and get onto some of the bigger rowdy rivalries of revenge. Here on Chaos Corner, live to tape. Don't you dare miss it.